Hello plant friends, it's Alanya here and welcome to my tiny balcony here in suburban Sydney where I'm learning to grow cold, cool and intermediate orchids without the help of equipment such as greenhouses and grow lights. It's just me, my orchids and Mother Nature outside. If you're new here, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. It's lovely to have you all here. A few weeks ago I included this particular orchid in an update video because it has come into bud. Now, this particular orchid is one that you don't see often around. It's a Zygopetalum Jumpin Jack, and unfortunately I don't have a hybrid variety for this, but I just thought, well, it's coming into flower. I don't know how long it's going to take, so I'm going to do a video about it now, and I will do an update when it does flower. So Zygopetalum, the name is a combination Greek word, and it comes from two words. Zygon meaning yolk and petalon meaning petal. Now the zygon refers to the yolk shape of the labellum petal, and I'll put a photo of a flower in here so that I can point out what I'm talking about. But a yolk has a number of different meanings. A piece of wood that straddles across, say, horses that hold a team of horses together, a frame worn across the shoulders to carry a load such as Aquarius or water bearers, or the shoulder piece across the back of a tailored shirt. And I'll put photos in here of each of these things. This genus was named in 1827 by a William Jackson, who was a renowned botanist at the time, and he was the one-time director of Kew Gardens. Zygopetalums are native to Central and South America in the mountainous and rainforest regions of Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, Argentina, Paraguay and Brazil. This is a fairly small genus with about 20 species in the whole genus, with 12 of those 20 species found natively in Brazil. So typically Zygopetalums are an intermediate to cool grower. They are found in the 500 to 1400 metre elevation, where they don't typically experience freezing or scorching temperatures. But I live in Sydney, so more about this one in a minute. Zygos, as are colloquially called, thrive in high humidity, so greater than 50%. Now, when I repotted this, I noted that the roots were a little bit brittle, and I did break a few, and everything I've read, Zygos, you can expect to break the roots because they are so brittle, so you will need to baby them as they recover and they start to re-establish themselves. The recommendations about dividing or separating this plant is to only do it when it needs it. So this plant has been in this pot for about 6 months, and it's not going to need to be divided for probably another 2 to 5 years. And even then I might just end up potting it back up into a bigger pot to make a bigger specimen plant. I have repotted this one into a terracotta pot. These like water, but I'll explain why I have chosen terracotta for this a little bit later. Now the flower on these, you can see my one is actually in bud with 3 flower buds on it. And this one, when I bought it, it had already gone over, and I'll talk about where I got it from later. But the flowers on these across the species all look roughly the same. So most of the species have a fairly similar looking flower. They're either green or lemon petals and sepals, roughly the same shape and size, with brown to black to burgundy patterns on the petals and the sepals. The labellum is fairly large, not dissimilar to an oncidium, and is pink, purple, or a sort of a bluish shade, usually striped or spotted. The Jumpin Jack variety have a lemon lime coloured petal and sepal with a burgundy-ish spotted pattern to the petals. However, there is a distinct margin around the edge of the petals, which is defining characteristic for this hybrid. They're also highly scented. This one doesn't smell yet, but the reports are sweet like a hyacinth in the morning and through the day, and then sort of migrating to a peppery type smell in the evening. Flowers are fairly long lasting, so everything I've read from 6 weeks to 10 weeks, so fairly long. So I'm hoping that one day in the not too distant future, I can bench this at my local orchid society. Now, I will do an update on how long this plant flowers for as it goes through, so I can keep a record myself of how long, and I will add that information into my orchid register. The spike for these, as I mentioned previously, grows from the bottom of the new pseudobulb, and the pseudobulb will start to develop and mature after the flowering has been completed. I mentioned cool to intermediate growing conditions, humid, but Sydney is a rather different climate to what these are used to. Now, this hybrid has been bred with heat tolerance, so this is a bit better for my own climate. Now, Sydney's climate is it's humid subtropical, so we have hot, humid days, but we also have hot, dry days. We have a cool but not freezing winter, and we don't have a lot of temperature extremes, so we don't go from 47 degrees Celsius to minus 40 degrees. That's extreme. Here, Sydney is a basin with lots of rivers through it, lots of humidity, and we also have weather which is affected by the coastal weather patterns that run up and down the Australian eastern seaboard. Now, where did I get this? Funnily enough, I got this in Canberra at a place called Yarralumla Garden Centre, which is a suburb in Canberra. And this was on a sale table inside the main garden centre. The flowers had gone over, so it had one skanky, dinky looking flower on it, so I knew what the flower looked like, but it had lost its scent because it had started to fall, and it dropped probably about a week after I got it. So this one was half price. Where I keep it, I do keep it outside. I'm going to try keeping it outside year round because we don't freeze. Very rarely do our winters get below the 7-degree mark, and then for only a day or two at a time. We don't get frosts here, and I have a roof on my balcony, so it's protected from above. North facing balcony, it gets light, there's a tree, the light will come in and it will tolerate winter light. I keep mine on this plant rack behind me. It lives just here, so it is a fairly high light loving plant, but moderate to medium shade. No direct sunlight in summer, so but it will tolerate direct winter light, which is lower and weaker due to the winter season being cooler. As I said, I've potted this one in terracotta. Now what this does is, while it is heat tolerant, the terracotta allows me to control the moisture of the pot. Being that while they are heat tolerant, this year Sydney had 47 Celsius degree days in a row, and that's way hotter. That's about 15 degrees hotter than what even this one is rated for. So what I did was, it's planted in a very, very light medium. It's planted in bark. It's got perlite in there. There's sphagnum moss for moisture retention, and some charcoal as well. The terracotta allows the moisture to evaporate, and that will cool the media inside. And then I also have it sitting in a humidity tray, always full with water to increase the humidity as the water evaporates. Now, the other thing I did when I did the very hot days was I took some ice cubes and I put the ice cubes in the humidity tray. As the ice cubes melted, that just would have helped bring those temperatures down. So this plant is actually doing really well. It's loving life. I have flower spikes. Well, I have a spike. It is a little bit susceptible to pests. I found dendrobium beetle on it, so I have treated this for dendrobium beetle, and I make sure pick it up at least once a week to have a look at it and can just check that the pests are controlled. So these are heavy feeders during the growth period. This one's got 2 new growths. So I've got the new pseudobulb coming here, but I also have a new smaller growth down in the bottom here. So I do feed it weekly, sometimes twice weekly, but when I do dilute the fertiliser, I dilute it down to either half or even a quarter of the strength, but I fertilise it slightly more regularly. I also will give it a sea salt. I'll spray it with a liquid sea salt in a spray bottle, so it's getting a lot of nutrients through. I also take my own worm castings and I will make tea out of my worm castings and I'll spray that through as well. Now, related to fertilising, I do make sure that at least once a fortnight I am flushing this with just fresh water to wash out any salts that may accumulate on the pot. And this pot is actually looking pretty good. It's a little bit damp because I sprayed it this morning. And I actually found this while I was just turning this around. This one, Zygopetalum, came with a pet friendly sticker on its label. So if you have cats and dogs that might like to chew on plants, I don't recommend it. Zygopetalum is one that you might be able to keep if you have cats and dogs. Well, plant friends, this is my Zygopetalum and I will keep you updated on the flowering status of this. Thank you for watching, and if you would like to follow along on my orchid adventures and how I grow my orchids here in suburban Sydney, please do press the subscribe button below with the notification bell turned on so that you can be notified every time I upload. And that's all for this week. So until next week, thank you for watching and bye-bye for now.